getting help does not mean failure. It does not mean something is broken. It does not mean you're in crisis. It's much easier to fix things when it's, at a 2 or a 3 of a problem instead of a 9, right?
Okay, what does communication mean to you? And so if you're asking for this, if you're normalizing that nothing's broken and the communication isn't working, it's like, this is exactly the tool that I'm looking to get, is because clearly the way that we are communicating and have been communicating and this pattern around it isn't getting us unstuck. We keep communicating in a circle. So as you normalize that, just checking in on the communication and normalizing people working on their communication as being part of one of the greatest pieces of the recipe to a remarkable marriage. Hello and welcome to Married and Magnetic, the place for entrepreneurial couples who want to stay happily married.
In each episode, we have real conversations with ordinary couples doing extraordinary things, sharing achievements, everyday joys, challenges, and the mindset and tools that make love the greatest strategic edge.
We are James
and Angela Mitchell,
a real-life married couple. She's a counselor,
and he's a coach,
parents to 3 kids,
and co-founders of Love Intentionally. We've ridden the highs
and lows
of building businesses while working hard to stay happily married. We've lived it, done the work,
got the t-shirt,
and are here to help you do the same.
This is Married and Magnetic, where love, business, and growth collide. Let's dive in, y'all. What's up, loves? Welcome to another episode of Married and Magnetic, a Love Intentionally podcast. We are your hosts, James
and Angela Mitchell.
Oh, yes, we are the Mitchells, and today is a show with Jamgela. We're going to talk about one of the number one pieces of feedback we get from couples, or at least one person in the couple, and it's that one person that's going, gosh, I would really love our relationship to go a little better. I would really love to bring the aliveness back. I'd like to work on something. Maybe I'd even like something changed, to use that language. But my other person, my spouse, my partner, my ride or die just isn't wanting to do this. So what do we do? Because I'm feeling the tension, I'm feeling the disconnect, but they're not willing to step into it with me. Help.
So we're going to give you some tips on that today. And, really when I hear this happening, a couple things come to mind. The first thing is, I do not assume that your partner, spouse is a big fat jerk. I usually assume that lazy, that one, we all have different needs and desires and things in the relationship. Maybe they really are satisfied with how things are, because what they need in a relationship is different than what you might be wanting, and that can be valid. But more likely what I see happening is there's probably some fear there. Even if they're not admitting it or maybe even aware of it, there's a resistance that is often based on some sort of fear. And that can often be things like, well, we're okay now, we're good. And if we dive into this, maybe it's going to expose some things.
It's going to rock the boat.
It's going to rock the boat. And then it's not going to be good. And we're going to argue about that. Or we're going to open that can of worms. And let's just keep the can closed, right? Or that if, that it's going to be vulnerable. I'm going to have to share these things with, I don't know, Angela and James or some other counselor or therapist or coach or group.
We don't talk about these kinds of things with people outside. We can just talk about this ourselves, babe, because that's been going so well.
Yeah, and it can feel really vulnerable to share with someone outside of your relationship or even within your relationship to really have these deep and honest conversations. So I tend to approach it very compassionately that, this person is probably having some sort of fear. Like I said, it might be not even be one they are aware of. It could be from childhood that they're still carrying something they saw in their own parents' marriage that is just in the back of their head, kind of creating this dynamic. So approach it with love.
Yeah. And it's just this idea is that if you feel stuck in some capacity, this is to try to help you get unstuck. So we can at least get a little movement going. And once that movement happens, some magic can happen.
Yeah. And then, so I do have compassion for the person who's resistant, and I have compassion to probably the one of you that's listening right now to this, and that you're wanting something to change and you're wanting to put the work in, and it can feel hurtful or like a rejection that your partner is not, right? And like, why I want to be more connected, why don't they? And that can hurt. And I understand that too. And so we want to give you some tips and tools that might help bring you both onto the same page.
Yes. So if you're going to be bringing this up, and maybe you have before, and this has become one of those topics that you don't touch because it's like, nope, that's going to bring up a conflict. Potentially whenever you're asking, it's who loves change, right? And so it's like, I remember when Angela was asking me for change, I'm like, why won't you just love me for who I am? And I would get that big D word, and not the divorce one, the defensive one. I would get super defensive. Like, we're good. Like, come on. Like, can't you just be happy? And so, what we started to do, and this goes back and forth between the two of us, whenever one of us is wanting to see any sort of I'm just going to stick with the word change, something to be different, perhaps, if we want to choose a little softer language is how are we approaching it? So the first thing is really just checking our energy when we're talking about this. Is it coming out whenever we're in a moment of
Exasperation.
exasperation or frustration or fatigue? Is it after dinner, after the kids go to bed, when we're actually tired, right? And so whenever we're bringing this up too, I always had a tendency to say, like, this is what you're doing and this is what I want more of. And I was really focused on the deficiencies and not the desires. So, if and when you're ready to bring this up the next time, it's time to focus on your energy when you're bringing it up, where are you coming from, and focusing on the desires.
Your desires.
Your desires. This
This
is
is
what
what I would like.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can see this better vision. I can see this thing. I can see how it used to be and I want to feel more of that again. And that still might bring up the defensiveness or the deflection or the blaming, right? And don't get stuck there too. Stay in it because that's usually the first invitation to connection is how they're feeling. And so if you want to know more about how they're feeling in general and you bring up this thing and it brings up those feelings, welcome those.
Yeah. So again, it's focusing on what you would like. So I would love to have some more tools for when life gets busy. How do we stay connected? Right. That's going to go a lot better in not bringing up defensiveness and then hopefully staying more open than, you know, well, we're too busy and you're never present when you're home with us. And, that kind of
No, no,
thing
no,
can
no, no.
feel like focusing on their deficiencies rather than on your desires. So that can be a good way to help decrease the defensiveness. Second thing is to really normalize that getting help does not mean failure. It does not mean something is broken. It does not mean you're in crisis. Please, 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 we would much prefer you to get help before you get to any of those things, right? It's much easier to fix things when it's, at a 2 or a 3 of a problem instead of a 9, right? So working, I always use example. I'm like, Olympic athletes have coaches,
Multiple.
lots of them. They do a lot of coaching, right? Not because they're terrible, actually because they're great and they want to be even greater, right? So using kind of that normalize it, and if you're wanting to talk about getting some help is like, not that we're in crisis, not that this means we're broken or we're failing, but just like, how can we be even better, right?
And I'll ask one of my favorite questions to ask any couple I meet, whether it's at the airport, at the line in the grocery store, is how long you've been married and what's your secret? And one of the resounding responses is communication. And that is just, I'm like, okay, well, what does communication mean to you? And so if you're asking for this, if you're normalizing that nothing's broken and the communication isn't working, it's like, this is exactly the tool that I'm looking to get, is because clearly the way that we are communicating and have been communicating in this pattern around it isn't getting us unstuck. We keep communicating in a circle. So as you normalize that, just checking in on the communication and normalizing people working on their communication as being part of one of the greatest pieces of the recipe to a remarkable marriage.
And if you're the one wanting change, I would also say it can be good to take the lead on it, right? We call that the leader in love, right? So if you're wanting, rather than, if I'm wanting change and I come to James and I'm like, I want this thing to change, and then I'm expecting him to just like figure it out.
She just hands it to me
It
like,
doesn't
here you
always,
go.
yeah. He doesn't want that. So if I'm the one really seeking it, I might say, hey, I'd really love to work on this. I'd love to get some more tools around this. I found these couple options. What do you think? Which one, sounds good to you? But if I'm presenting the options, it's much easier for him to say yes than for me trying to put it on him to come up with how we're going to fix this or what we're going to do.
Because instead of bringing me a problem, she's bringing me a solution. And that is a huge piece in taking the lead. Is I'm not bringing a problem to the table right now. I'm bringing a solution to the table right now. And also acknowledging their feelings. Like, I know this might be scary, but when you assume that role as the leader in this, also give them permission and invite them to support you. I'd like to lead us into this, and I would love your support.
Yeah. And again, because there's probably some fear under their resistance, whether they're acknowledging it or not. And so you having confidence and like, hey, I really feel like this is a great option for us and this is really going to help, they might need to borrow your confidence a little bit. So if you're showing up confidently, it can be reassuring to their fears, even on the subconscious level. Next thing along with that is say start small, right? So if they are hesitant, it can feel overwhelming to be like, we're going to sign up for 6 months of coaching, or we're going to
Let's go
fly to
intensive.
India and do a retreat, right? Like these can feel like really big commitments. So instead, start small, right? We have a 30-minute free relationship review. That could be your small thing, right? Like, let's just hop on 30 minutes. It's free. See what the vibe is. See how we like it, right? Oh, we're going to do this group for a month. Let's test it out. See how we like it, right? Doing some low stakes thing can help get over that initial fear or tension of starting.
And we don't have a stake. We don't care who you get help from
Yep.
and who's going to help you get to this next level. And this is what we do. And so we have created a lot of small opportunities that you can do at home or do in privacy, do on your own, that are going to at least start to move the needle. And there's this really great thing that happens whenever we feel stuck, whenever we're wanting something to be different. The second that we make the choice to do something, it automatically brings a level of ease to the relationship. That's on the one side of the coin. The other side of the coin might be just like a little bit of like, oh gosh, like where's this going to lead us down here? But when you know that, hey, we're both in this together, we're both going to step into this and we're both going to be working on this, just knowing that that's happening. Like when people sign up for any of our programs, big or small, they'll go, okay, I just feel so much better because we have a direction.
We have a plan.
We have a plan. And so if you're in this like stuck, I want to do this, I want to work on a relationship, and they're like, I don't, just getting on the same page as a leader and a supporter about what you're going to do is going to create a lot more opportunity, and it's going to open up the communication a lot more.
And then if you're also in this season of where you would like things to be better in your relationship, it's important. We really are firm believers that it's important to surround yourself with other solid couples. So
I want to give an amen to that.
amen.
Amen.
Because this is something we've intentionally done in our own marriage. If I am upset with James about something, never, right? Pathetically.
Sometimes and sometimes often.
And I need to maybe process it with someone before bringing it to him, because sometimes that can be a good idea.
Yeah.
I need to get
Your
through my
spouse
thoughts.
is not your counselor.
Yeah. So I need to process it. I am going to go to a friend who is in a solid marriage, usually, and also who likes James. Because if I go to a friend and they're just like, he's such a jerk, I can't believe he did that, like, I feel supported, but it doesn't actually help me and James get back connected, right? I feel validated, but that only goes so far.
Right. And if you go to that friend who's gotten divorced, like their answer is usually be like, okay, well, if it's not working, like go find a better husband then. But if you find that friend that has been through the fire with their spouse, with their ride or die, then they're going to tell you and explain to you and give you the playbook on what they've done when they've been in the same spot. Because newsflash, everybody in lifelong marriage has been in that spot. And so finding the people that have made it through that and come out stronger, surround yourself with those people.
Yeah. And a good friend, I think, can also kindly point out your blind spots, right? And if you don't have a good friend to do that, that's where we'll get into this in a second, but your own counseling or coaching can help, right? Because sometimes it's harder for me to see my role in how I'm showing up, right? And how if I change maybe how I'm showing up, it also might change James's response. So find a friend that is going to be supportive, right? Who has been through it before, like James said, who has a strong marriage. And then also just as a couple, we try to hang out with not that we don't have single friends, we do, but that we often spend time with other couples who also have a strong marriage or relationship. That's what we like modeled for us. We know that, there's that rule of you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that works for relationships too, right? So if we are surrounding ourselves with couples in strong marriages, that is modeled for us, right? That is what is around us. That is the energy we are in, and we're more likely to rise to that than spending time with couples who are not super connected, who talk bad about each other behind their backs, those kind of things.
Yeah.
All right. So if you've done all this, and let's say it's just still not really working, your person is not on board, they're not wanting to really get any help. We also strongly believe that you can start with you. I like to say that it takes two people to create a pattern. It only takes one to break it. There's a caveat, right? That if James and I have realized a pattern in our relationship we're wanting to change and we're both working on it, it is going to change faster. That is
Much
true.
faster.
That's best case scenario. But if for whatever reason one of us isn't seeing it or willing to put in the work, if I show up differently, I think of patterns like a dance. So if we're dancing and I all of a sudden do a different dance move, James kind of has to adjust his step or I'm going to like step on his toes and we're going to be tripping over each other, right? So when one person changes the move, it automatically means the other person has to respond, or at least invited to respond differently, right? So it can change the dynamic. So we do encourage starting with you, right? We all bring our own stuff to relationships. A lot of it's subconscious from what we saw modeled as kids or relationships we have with our parents or friends or siblings or whatever growing up that we carry into our relationships now. So we can start with ourselves and really getting us to show up as our best self in the relationship, which then often can invite change in the other person.
Yeah, that's been a great one, especially for me doing my men's work, is that, in our relationship, for the vast majority, yes, both of us have been willing to do the work. And at the same time, sometimes we just hit those little stalemates on specific topics or areas of our relationship. And the quickest way for me to shift that dynamic is to shift how I'm showing up into it. So my own individual counseling, my own individual men's work, my own individual practices give me a new awareness and a new understanding. So there is a ton of power if you're in that stuck stalemate part of I want to work on this, they don't. What are you doing? How are you growing? Because the second you start to grow, it can start to invite them up, because when you show up as a better partner for them, all of a sudden, because a lot of times the stuckness is, I've been doing this for them and they won't do that for me. And like they're asking me to do something they haven't willing to do. And so when you take the lead, so this is another way to take the lead and to be the leader in love, is to start doing the things that support you in becoming the partner that you want to be.
Yeah. And if you haven't, episode 15, there's a couple of the Hammakers that we interviewed. And I thought they had a beautiful example of this, which they talked about. So you can go back and listen to it. But she basically started doing the work. And then after doing the work, she had tried the nagging and the getting him, and that didn't work to get him on board. Then she started doing, surprisingly, yeah.
Huh.
He was like, I was just sipping my bourbon, watching her do the work. Then she did her personal development work. And then when she was able to come from him from a really centered place where she wasn't triggered anymore because she had done enough work to stay centered and not triggered, she was able to come to him in love and say, hey, I've just noticed this, right? The energy she was able to show up with actually was the energy that invited him to start making changes and to really invest in his own mental health and their relationship. And so I think there's a lot to say about if I'm coming with a certain energy, it can provoke defensiveness, right? If I'm triggered, if I'm not calm. But if I can be calm and centered and come from a place of love and a place of curiosity, even if James starts having defensiveness, if I stay grounded and stay curious, we can move through it better because I can go, oh, well, what's underneath that, right? Or it sounds like you're frustrated about that. Like, what's underneath that frustration? I can actually, if I'm staying in that spot, get more to what's the root and have a better understanding maybe for what he's actually experiencing and what's coming up.
And I want to share like what she noticed, because this exactly mirrors one of the things Angela said to me that she noticed at one point. And this can be one of the most powerful questions or noticings or mirrorings that you can give whenever you're trying to invoke and call them up into wanting to work on things. And she said, I've noticed you're not happy. Angela said the exact same thing to me at one point in my career. She said, I've noticed you're not happy. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, of course I'm happy.
I'm happy.
I'm happy. Look how happy I am. But being able to then reflect on that, like, oh, maybe I'm not happy. Like, I'm just kind of maybe putting on this facade. I'm just doing all these other roles. I think it doesn't really matter, but I think in particular with men, just like, I've noticed you're not happy. And I think that's going to work on either side. So if you're the man listening to this and you're like, I think you can mention that. And yeah, let's take the gender thing out of it, or whichever role that you play in the relationship. It's, I've noticed you're not happy. And when you drop that question on them, it's going to give them a chance to really sit back and think about it.
Great.
Yeah.
So, all that to say, value in doing your own work. It helps in changing how you approach it, which often makes them more receptive. Modeling, I'm just going to go with 10 out of 10. I was going to say 9 out of 10, but I really think it's 10 out of 10. Modeling 10 out of 10 times works better than nagging. No one likes to be nagged, right? That just creates those walls and defensiveness. Just you modeling and showing up differently. Sometimes your partner goes, oh, they do seem happier. They do seem more carefree. They do seem more playful.
And who doesn't want that for themselves?
And lastly, that it really, by doing your own work, like James said before, we're shifting it from calling them out to calling them up, right? So we're not focused on the deficiencies. We're not focused on what they're doing wrong. We're going like, hey, I want to have this really amazing life over here, and I'm doing my work over here to do it. Like, won't you come along?
It's a great journey. And I'd be a terrible entrepreneur if I didn't tell you that's part of what we do. So we work primarily with couples that are all in, entrepreneurial couples and specifically. And we will also then take in the one person that wants to do that work. And so if you're in a same sex relationship, you can pick between the two of us. If you're in a heterosexual relationship,
You can also pick between
you
the two
can
of
also
us.
pick between the two of us, whichever one you resonate the most with. And also you can share us. It's like, all right, let me get James's perspective on this. Let me get Angela's perspective on
We
this.
recently had a client who met mostly with James. He was wanting to do men's work. He was single, but he was wanting to find a relationship and worked mostly with James, and then requested, one of his sessions to be with me because he wanted kind of the female perspective on it. We're happy to do that, and we won't get offended which one of us you pick. I mean, we'll keep score, but
Yeah.
no, I'm just kidding. So wherever you're at, we'd love to see how we can help. Again, we do 30-minute free connection calls. You can, I'll put that in the link here. And if it's not us, cool too. We just want you to get the help and support that you need and want. And these are hopefully some tips that can help bring your person along if you're trying to be the leader in love here.
So there is hope, right? We want to inspire you that if you're feeling stuck, you do not have to feel that way because there's a lot more that you have control over than maybe you've been giving yourself credit for. So take this as a lovely invitation to either lead into a new conversation from a different place and ask for that support, or to step into this by yourself and start to become the change in the relationship that you desire to see. But there is a path. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
And it's worth
Oh,
worth
yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah. Again, who doesn't want to be happier, more joyful, more in love,
More playful.
more playful, more intimate, right? That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, we want to love and be loved. And so this is your way to step into that. This is your way to do that, even all by yourself.
Yeah. So thanks for listening. If this made you think of someone, maybe your friend has been going through this, please send this to them. We, really the whole reason we do this podcast is to have a wider reach and be able to help more people. So please pass this along. Small plug if you haven't already, please give us a review. That helps us grow our podcast and our following, again, just so we can spread more love to the world.
Get more awesome guests to share with you. So thank you for listening to this little bite-sized episode of Married and Magnetic with Jamjala as your hosts and guests. And until next time, y'all, may your life and love be magnetic.